Welcome to my The Asshole Podcast. Let's get into it. Today is Thursday. And you know what we got for Thursday? We have a quarter Thorns and Roses day. Oh yeah, we about to see what our girl Farrah has gotten herself into. Because she's got herself into some deep shit. And we about to find out what's going down in chapters 35 and 36 for today. But you know what we do? We always have our thread before we get into the book. And on Tuesday, we did a thread called What's the Worst Way That You've Been Broken Up With? Now we're going to do What's the Worst Way to Break Up With Someone? Now we're going to flip the script. So let's see what ways you guys have broken up with somebody. All right. So let's get into it. 27 years or so ago, my ex-wife made love to me. Then right after, while still laying in bed together, in the afterglow, she took off her ring and gave it to me and said she wanted a divorce. I couldn't believe she had done it that way. Although I was ready for it to be over, she said she thought it would be the nicest way to do it. I thought it was pretty ruthless, whatever. I mean, she gave you some coochie before she left. She was just like, how about you hit this cooch one more again, and then I'll dip. I got you. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel her. I'm on that with her. You know what I mean? Like, she looks at it like, hey, I gave you one good little taste before I'm out. You know? Hey. That wasn't too bad. Tell them that they can spend Christmas in your guest room when they visit because someone else will be staying in their room with them. Wow. Yo. You ain't got to do somebody that dirty. Just tell them to go somewhere else for Christmas. Damn. You ain't got to be like, yeah, you're going to be in the guest bedroom because there's going to be somebody else in the bedroom. Like, damn, that's fucked up. I'd be so pissed to hear some shit like that. All right. She started making out with another dude while we were at a party. Oh, god damn. Damn, all sitting on the same couch. That deflates the romance pretty quickly. Yo, her man was sitting on the couch with her. That man, that couldn't be me, man. I'm sorry, that cannot be me. I would literally get up and I would leave. There ain't no fucking way. The moment, like, if I am sitting and it's me, my girl, and then some dude, and then she starts kissing that guy, I'd get up and I'd leave. I'd go straight home. And I'd be like, yeah, that nigga can take you home. The fuck we talking about? And if we live together, oh, don't bother coming home. Fuck no. Oh my god. Oh. This nigga said in a group text.
Stop the cap.
Oops, wrong one. He said in a group text. Imagine being broken up with in a group chat text. Oh. No, see. There's some things you shouldn't do. That's heinous. Like that. She wanted it to be, or he or she, I don't know, wanted it to be a spectacle. They were like, I want all of our friends and potential family in this group chat. I want everybody in this group chat to know that we're done. And who broke up with who and everything. Because if I was in that group chat and I saw that, I'd be like, huh? Uh-oh. I mean, if it was my boy, I'd call him, you know, I would be on the, I would text on the side, like, yo, what? Help your boy, what is going on? Because, bruh, sheesh, oh my god. All right, make the decision hastily, tell everyone but them, ghost them, then send them an email, not to their primary email that they don't check, show up at their doorstep a week later asking to have them back. Wait, what? You had me in the beginning, but then you're like, show up at their doorstep and beg for them back. What are you talking about? Why would you do all that just to go back. You know, why would you do all of that just to go back? You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna break up with them, then I'm gonna, but I'm not gonna tell them. I'm gonna tell everybody else. Then I'm gonna ghost them, and then I'm gonna go ahead and send them an email, you know, detailing why they got ghosted and broken up with. But obviously, I didn't tell them or you know, text them or anything like that, and then show up at their house a week later, like, huh? Like, is this what modern dating looks like nowadays? Because ouch. That's kind of tough. Even no matter if this was done to a guy or a girl, that'd be tough. You'd be like, damn, what did I do? Spend $100 and enjoy $200 in, I don't know what, Flip coin. Okay. Oh, well, okay, never mind. I'm sorry, that's an ad. I found out my ex and I were together after he posted an Instagram picture with his best friend of 3 years saying, it only took me 3 years to ask her out. No. No. Oh, that means your relationship meant nothing to this guy. Nothing. He was like, you were just the in-between for right now. Like, her? Don't worry about her. But that's the one I love. Don't worry about her, but that's the one I love right there. You're just my little in-between right now. That one, though, that's the love of my life. Now, what are we talking about? The past 3 years, that's the love of my life. You're just my little in-between squeeze. That's crazy. Wow. Damn. My college roommate spent an entire weekend with his girlfriend from another state, knowing he was going to break up with her. When he took her to drop off at the train station on Sunday, he waited until she leaned in with the car door open to kiss him goodbye, broke the news instead of kissing her, didn't even unbuckle and get out. She stood there stunned with bags on the curb, and he closed the door and drove off. I thought that was pretty shit. Yo. So he spent the entire weekend with this girl. He was smashing her, taking her out, doing all this stuff. Then, knowing that he was going to break up with her, then when it's time to drop her off, he was just like, all right, cool, I hope you get back safe. She's like, okay, love you, waiting for a kiss. And he's just like, yeah, so we're done. I don't want to be with you ever again. And bye. Closes the door and just drives off. She's just stunned with her bags on the floor and everything. That's, wow. That's diabolically fucked up. Why? Just why? Like, why go through that much? You know what I mean? Like, I get it, the whole weekend, you wanted it to be a good thing, but you could have easily just sent her home early, or you could have just told her before the weekend, like, hey, look, I don't think we should, like, oh, damn, man, damn. That is super fucked up, man. All right. Leave and never return. Don't send any messages. Block them from all social media. Never tell them the reasons. Losing someone who you thought was fine with you so suddenly in such a quiet and confusing way will really fuck with somebody's anxiety and self-esteem. See, you are what's wrong with dating. You are the type of person that is wrong with dating. Why do people ghost when you could easily just let them know, hey, look, I don't see it like this. You know what I mean? It ain't working out for me. Boom, bop, bing. We go our separate ways. Sure, it's going to hurt the other person. Sure, it's going to make them sad. Sure, it's going to make them feel some type of way. Whatever the case may be. But you were at least honest. Like, what the fuck is the point of you blocking somebody or just ghosting them out of nowhere and then you fuck it up for them? It's the stupidest thing ever. I can't stand it when people do stuff like that. When they just ghost you for no reason. It's like, for what? Just be honest. Just tell me you weren't feeling it. You know what I mean? Like, that shit is just, that's wild to me. And I think that's why dating is the way it is now. You know, everybody and their mama got trust issues. There's not a single person that doesn't have trust issues now, you know, because of stupid shit like this. It's ridiculous. And then again, it fucks it up for the next person. You know? Ah. All right. Christmas Eve, my ex got all of her gifts because we wouldn't see each other the next day because she would be busy, quote unquote. Turns out she had been cheating on me with another guy and she just wanted to get her gifts. Wow. After packing everything, she says, "Oh yeah, we are done. I'm seeing someone else," and left. We were together for several years and engaged at that point. Oh, bruh. I got the ring back. Oh my God. Wow. That's heinous. And she took the gifts too. That's the fucked up part about it, is that you took the gifts. You took the gifts. You were like, yeah, I'm about to get double gifts, you know, from this loser. And then I'm about to go see my real man that I love. And I got that good. He about to pipe me down for Christmas. He didn't have to buy me no gift. Yo, bitch ass had to buy me a gift. But him, nah, man. He can lay down that pipe for Christmas. That's all we need. And man, and she went over there. She finessed you, bro, out of a breakup. That's crazy. That is crazy. Like, dude. Again, man, it's like, why do people have to break up with somebody in the worst way possible? Like, it's already going to be tough for the person you're breaking up with. It's already going to be tough. Why go to those kind of lengths? Why? You know, like, bruh, why go to those kind of lengths? That's just too much. Man, that's too much. If I was that dude, I would be, I'd be in a world of hurt. I'd be like, yeah, you know, dating ain't for me, man. It ain't for me. All right. Go into a public space and act like everything is normal. Then pat yourself down as if you're looking for something. Start frantically looking under and inside of random objects when you feel an appropriate amount of time has passed. Go back and then tell them you lost your feelings for them. Okay, that's just doing way too much. That is doing way too much. Like, and then imagine, like, you do all of that and they're just like, "Oh, shut up, stop playing, you're stupid." And then you're like, "Oh, fuck." Then what? You know, because, like, come on, bro. What are we doing here? He said, pat yourself down and start looking around in and other shit and then be like, "I lost feelings for you." That's so stupid. Oh my God. By marrying their sister. That's crazy, bro. Wow. He said the best way I've broken up with somebody is by marrying her sister. That's crazy. What the fuck? Imagine, bro, that's not your sister. That is not your fucking sister. That is the op. What? Because you got to understand. That meant that the sister has been plotting and planning the whole time. And I guarantee you there's been times when your boyfriend, quote unquote, came over and you guys are hanging out when in reality he was there to hang out with the sister and the sister was about it. And I guarantee you they was probably doing a little sneak stuff on the side. You know what I mean? Ooh, a little sneak on the side. Oh, and I know he was all about it. Why? Because that was too good. You know, the walls were forbidden. They sneaking around. Oh yeah. But that's not your sister, bro. That is your that's your op, man. Okay. Over the internet on Valentine's Day, which also happens to be their birthday. Damn. Like, you not only fucked up Valentine's Day for this person, but you also fucked up their birthday too. Like, god damn, talk about collateral damage. Oh, man, talk about collateral damage. Like, bro, this person's like, not only do I hate my fucking birthday, but I hate Valentine's Day too. Like, fuck you, man. Oh, and again, you're fucking it up for the rest of them. Imagine this person gets into another relationship and then they're like, oh yeah, happy Valentine's Day and then happy birthday. And they're just like, nah. Why did you do all this? You know what I mean? And that would suck. Especially if you're the other person, you don't really know, you know what I mean, that they don't really like their birthday and Valentine's Day like that, and then you buy them gifts and want to make them feel special and all that kind of stuff, and they just hate the day. They just fucking hate the day. Like, damn. God damn, dude. All right, back in high school, I remember hearing about a couple having the following phone conversation. Hey, guys, who broke up today? The girl, who? Guy, us. That's fucked up, man. He told his girl, he said, hey, guess who broke up today? And she's like, oh shit, who? He's like, us. And just hung up. Like, y'all motherfuckers are diabolical, man. God damn. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I've broken up with girls in the past, but I've never, and I mean ever, have done some shit like this, like you guys. Man, what the fuck be going through you guys' head? Like, why? Why is that viable? They're just like, why? Like, okay, I'm trying to get into your mind here and see how you came to that conclusion as a good idea. Where, you're just thinking to yourself, man, how can I break up with her? Like, okay, maybe I could just like call her and I'll just try to make it like super quick. You know what I mean? Maybe I can make it like into a joke or something. Like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And then, oh, guess who broke up today? Oh, who? Us. And it's like, what the, like, come on, man. What the fuck? Now I see why people got fucking trust issues and, dating is trash nowadays. You know what I mean? People move on for like the littlest, tiniest things because it's like they get broken up with like this. Like, man. Okay, probably either on the second day of a 7-day trip or on the second hour of a 9-hour fucking bus ride where you still have to be within 10 feet of each other for the rest of the damn trip. Not that I'm bitter or anything. What the why? If you know you're going to break up with somebody, why would you even go on the 7-day trip with them? Why would you even go on this 9-hour bus ride? Because it's like, we're going to have to go back. Imagine you get on a 9-hour bus ride with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, and then they break up with you an hour into the bus ride and you're like, great. Now for the next fucking 16 hours, because you got to go back, you're going to have to drive the other 7 hours there. You're going to have to drive another 9 hours back because you're not going on this trip with them anymore. Fuck you. What do you think I am? No. Same thing with the 7-day trip thing. It's like, great, fantastic. We paid for fucking 5 more days, and now I have to spend them in absolute agony. Wonderful. Great way to fucking ruin a trip. Like, what the fuck? Break up with them before. Not after, sorry. Before. And that way, you guys can cancel some shit. At least get a little money back. Something. Like, what the fuck, man? Jesus. Oh, I could never like plan a big ass trip with someone I'm going to break up with. Even if the trip was planned a long, long time ago, I would start canceling shit and, trying to get my money back as much as possible, this is that. And then I would let them know, hey, look, we're not going to, Belize or whatever because I'm breaking up with you. And then we're good. Like, who in the hell? I'd probably just be like, can I get off? I would be trying to get off. I'd be like, can I get off this bus? I'm done. And then, the whole 7-day trip thing. Yeah, I'd be trying to fly back ASAP. Fuck are we talking about? Like, man. My boyfriend broke up with me by texting me, asking how my day was. I said, fine. How was yours? He responded with, great. Had a fantastic day with my girlfriend. I was at work all day. We had been together for 4 years and been living together for 2. He had been cheating on me and decided to leave me for his mistress. Good times. See what I mean? Fucking it up for the rest of us, man. Ah. Ah, see what I mean? This is how you destroy good people. This is how you destroy good people right here, man. Like, this girl could have been like the most loving and greatest girl ever. And now the next dude that she talks to and dates and all that kind of stuff, oh bro, she's gonna give that man hell. She's gonna give that man hell. And he's gonna be like, nah, I'm good on that. Damn, bro. Damn. Again, out here fucking it up for the rest. He didn't have to do all that. He didn't even have to say he had another girlfriend. He could have just been like, hey, I just don't think things are working out between us. Like, I'm sorry. The spark just died, this and that. And, yeah, it ain't working out for me. Peace out. And then you could just easily go be with that other girl. You don't have to do all this. You don't have to do all that. Like, damn, man. Damn. All right. Let's see. Over text right after they tell you they have cancer. Whoa. Wow. That's tough. Oh. Oh, breaking up somebody while they tell you you have cancer is crazy. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think cancer should be a reason why you stay with somebody. But damn, that's gotta suck. Just imagine thinking like you hear that devastating news, but you're like, oh, at least I still have the love and support of my woman or my man's, you know what I mean? And then they end up breaking up with you, and it's just like, yo, Jesus, what did I do, my guy? What was going on, man? Why doth thou forsaken me? What are we doing here? What I do, my guy? Like, help me out. Help a nigga out, please, because I don't know what's going on. Oh, that would be, yeah, you would want to clock out at that point. You'd be like, cancer, take me. God damn. All right, I'm going to do 3 more. By not even communicating the breakup, but still communicating with them while slowly becoming less and less talkative until they finally figure out that the relationship is over in their own. It's slow torture, but just be honest and straightforward. Yeah, dude. Like, why? I call that the slow burn. You know what I mean? The slow fade. That's what I call it. I call it the slow fade. When somebody doesn't really like you like that, and so, they'll just like day over day over day, they'll just slowly stop talking to you little by little until one day they just don't text you at all. Like, you guys are going from texting all day to texting maybe half the day, and then maybe texting only maybe in the morning or the evening, and then they text you one time, and then that's it, and then they don't text you at all, and it's just done. It's over. They never hear from them again. I hate that. That is so fucked up. Why? Because the person on the other end is thinking like, oh, yeah, they're just busy. Oh, yeah, they're just doing their thing. No problem. I'll hit them up tomorrow. You hit them up, nothing. You're like, well, you know what I mean? Because, because I'm that guy, dude. I hate it. Oh, I hate that. I'm that type of person where I will justify when I know she's not interested in me. I will justify it to the ends of the moon and earth and all that shit. And I'm like, nah, she's just busy. Nah, she like fell down a well somewhere. Like, duh, of course. She's got no cell signal. Like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? She's in an intergalactic battle. Like, she's busy. What are we talking about? Like, duh, that's why she can't text me back. Come on, man. Like, she's totally not, like, hanging out with another guy or texting another dude or, you know what I mean? Just, not talking to me all together. Like, Yeah, I'm that guy. I hate it. It sucks. It's the worst. I feel like it's the worst part about me. You know what I mean? I will sit there and justify it through the roof just because I like a girl. I hate it. Hey, I don't know how people are just like, oh, okay, cool, they don't like me, whatever, and they just move on with their life. I don't know how they do that. I try to be that person, but then I can't sleep at night. You know what I mean? I'll be pretending like nothing is going on all day long, and then when it's time to go to sleep, it's just me and my thoughts, and I'm just like, I hate it. I hate it so much. Oh, I hate it so much, man. Oh, being that kind of person, I wish I was the type of person that could just turn it off. Like, oh my God, I wish I was that type of person, but I can't. Like, once I like somebody, I actually like them. It's like, yes. You know what I mean? I can't just turn that shit off. Oh. And then it sucks because when I am in that stage where I can turn it off, it's like they won't do that. They'll wait until I get to the point where, you know, I'm like, I'm about you. And then once I'm about them, they're like, okay, cool. Now it's time for me to you know, slow fade him. And I'm like, okay, all right. Okay, again, that's where the craziness of she's probably in an intergalactic battle. It's all good, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know, she fell down a well and's got no cell reception. Like, of course, you know, she's in the hospital. She, you know, fell down some stairs or something. I don't know. Hey, I'm telling you, man, your boy get delusional out here. Oh, this is going to be our last one, though. When you're a politician and your wife gets cancer, tell your campaign finance manager she's not young enough or pretty enough to be the wife of a president. Besides, she has cancer. Then you file for divorce while she's in the hospital. You later file for divorce from your second wife after she's diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. What the fuck, bro? Okay. Wow. Man, I mean, if you didn't have a worse reason to not like politicians, goddamn, there you go. There you fucking go. God damn. All right. Well, on that note, that's going to go ahead and end today's thread. Jesus Christ. You guys are some diabolical people, and you are the reason why dating is the way it is, because you guys are fucking assholes, man. Instead of just being honest, you guys rather walk around talking about, oh, I lost something. Uh-oh. Feelings for you. Ha. You know, or just like, hey, guess what? Guess who broke up today? To us. Yeah. Like, what the fuck, man? Let's just come on, people. Let's be better. Let's just communicate, man. Let's just communicate. Let's just say, hey, you know, I'm not into you like that. Hey, I'm not feeling it. Hey, like, come on, man. Because that shit hurts. All right? And I know, because I'm on the receiving end of that all the time. I fucking can't stand it. Oh, dating is trash. Oh, my God. All right. But that's going to be the end of that thread, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys have any crazy, wacky ways that you've broken up with somebody or you know has broken up with somebody, put it down in the comments. If you want to be a part of the threads in the future, patreon.com/MyTheAsshole Podcast is the place to do it. Get on there, $3 a month, get you an exclusive episode every single Friday, as well as being able to send in your scenarios to be featured on Tuesday and Sunday episodes, and be part of the thread. Check it out. If you are on the free 99 side of things, like most of you are, and that's okay. If you're on an audio platform, go ahead and download the podcast. It helps out a lot, as well as rating the show 5 stars if you haven't already on your preferable listening platform. It helps people. It helps the the app or whatever you use be like, hey, this guy's pretty cool. You should watch him. So helps out, and it's for free. If you want to help out even more on the free 99 side of things, go ahead and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, as well as the YouTubes. It helps out a lot, and guess what? It's all for free, baby. All right, it's all for free. All the links are down in the description, as well as all of the links to playlists and all that other stuff. If you guys don't know what's going on with the Court of Thorns and Roses right now, or you just joined in or you just hopped in, don't worry, I got you. There's a whole playlist down there with all chapters, all the way from chapter 1 to chapter 34. Today we're going to be doing chapters 35 and 36. So if you want to get caught up and see what's going on, go ahead and check out that playlist. It's in the description down there. I do have a Spotify link as well as a YouTube link, so if you want to watch the video version of it, or do you want to watch the audio, I say you do the audio, just because these episodes, you know what I mean? They're better audio anyway. But without further ado, though, let's see what our girl Feyre is getting herself into. Last time we left off, she set off back to the land of the elves. Forgot what it's called, but she headed out. She was looking for Tamlin. She got back to their house, saw it in shambles and war torn and all that kind of stuff. Found out that Tamlin and Lucian have been kidnapped by Amaranthia. And so now she's like, bitch, I want my man back. And Amaranthia is like, come and get him. But you're going to have to go through me to get him, bitch. So now they fighting over my man Tamlin. And it's getting a little juicy. Our girl is on the losing side of things right now. She kind of getting her ass beat. So hopefully she can turn it around, whoop this bitch's ass, and get her man back. We'll see, though. We'll see what's going on. But without further ado, we have chapters 35 and 36.
Tongue, before I knew no more. Chapter 35. My senses slowly returned to me, each one more painful than the last. The sound of dripping water first, then the fading echo of heavy footsteps. A lingering coppery taste coated my mouth. Blood. Above the wheezing of what had to be my clogged nostrils, the tang of mold and the reek of mildew scented the damp, cold air. Sharp bits of hay jabbed my cheek. My tongue probed the makings of a split lip, and the movement set my face on fire. Wincing, I opened my eyes, but could only manage to widen them a little. Swelling. What I beheld through my undoubtedly black eyes didn't do much for my spirits. I was in a prison cell. My weapons were gone, and my only sources of light were the torches beyond the door. Amarantha had said a cell was to be where I would spend my time, but even as I sat up, my head so dizzy I almost blacked out again, my heartbeat quickened. A dungeon. I examined the slants of light that crept in through the cracks between the door and the wall, then gingerly touched my face. It ached worse than anything I'd ever endured. I bit down on a cry as my fingers grazed my nose, flakes of blood crumbling from my nostrils. It was broken. Broken. I would have clenched my teeth had my jaw not been a throbbing mess of agony, too. I couldn't panic. No. I had to keep my tears in check, had to keep my wits together. I had to survey the damage as best I could, then figure out what to do. Maybe my shirt could be used for bandages. Maybe they would give me water at some point to wash out the injuries. Taking a breath that was all too shallow, I explored the rest of my face. My jaw wasn't broken, and though my eyes were swollen and my lip was split, the worst damage was to my nose. I curled my knees to my chest, grasping them tightly as I reined in my breathing. I'd violated one of Alice's rules. I'd had no choice, though, seeing Tamlin seated beside Amarantha. My jaw protested, but I ground my teeth anyway. The full moon. It had been a half moon when I left my father's home. How long had I been unconscious down here? I wasn't foolish enough to believe that any amount of time would prepare me for Amarantha's first task. I didn't allow myself to imagine what she had in mind for me. It was enough to know that she expected me to die, that there wouldn't be enough left of me for her to torture. I gripped my legs harder to keep my hands from shaking. Somewhere, not too far off, screaming began. A high-pitched, pleading bleat, accented with crescendos of shrieking that made bile sting in my throat. I might sound like that when faced with Amarantha's first task. A whip cracked, and the screaming built, hardly pausing for a breath. Claire had probably cried similarly. I had as good as tortured her myself. What had she made of all this? All these fairies lusting after her blood and misery? I deserved this, deserved whatever pain and suffering was in store, if only for what she had endured. But but I would make it right, somehow. I must have drifted off at some point, because I awoke to the scrape of my cell door against stone. Forgetting the cascading pain in my face, I scrambled to duck into the shadows of the nearest corner. Someone slipped into my cell and swiftly shut the door, leaving it just a bit ajar. "Feyre?" I tried to stand, but my legs shook so badly that I couldn't move. "Lucian?" I breathed, and the hay crunched as he dropped to the ground before me. "By the cauldron! Are you all right?" My face. A small light flared by his head, and as his eyes swam into view, the metal one narrowed. He hissed. "Have you lost your mind? What are you doing here?" I fought the tears. They were pointless anyway. "I went back to the manor. Alice told me about the curse, and I couldn't let Amarantha—" "You shouldn't have come, Feyre," he said sharply. "You weren't meant to be here. Don't you understand what he sacrificed in getting you out? How could you be so foolish?" "Well, I'm here now," I said, louder than was wise. "I'm here, and there's nothing that can be done about it, so don't bother telling me about my weak human flesh and my stupidity. I know all that, and I wanted to cover my face in my hands, but it hurt too much. I had to tell him that I love him, to see if it wasn't too late." Lucian sat back on his heels. "So you know everything, then?" I managed to nod without blacking out from the pain. My agony must have shown because he winced. "Well, at least we don't have to lie to you anymore. Let's clean you up a bit." "I think my nose is broken, but nothing else." As I said it, I looked around him for any signs of water or bandages, and found none. It would be magic, then. Lucian glanced over his shoulder, checking the door. "The guards are drunk, but their replacements will be here soon," he said, and then studied my nose. I braced myself as I allowed him to gently touch it. Even the graze of his fingertips sent flashes of burning pain through me. "I'm going to have to set it before I can heal it." I clamped down on my blind panic. "Do it, right now." Before I could wallow in my cowardice and tell him to forget about it, he hesitated. "Now," I panted. Too swift for me to follow, his fingers latched onto my nose. Pain lanced through me, and a crack burst through my ears, my head, before I fainted. When I came to, I could open both eyes fully, and my nose was clear, and didn't throb or send agony splintering through my face. Lucian was crouched over me, frowning. "I couldn't heal you completely. They would know someone helped you. The bruises are there, along with a hideous black eye, but all the swelling's gone." "And my nose?" I said, feeling it before he answered. "Fixed. As pert and pretty as before." He smirked at me. The familiar gesture made my chest tighten to the point of pain. "I thought she'd taken most of your power," I managed to say. I'd barely seen him handle magic at all while at the estate. He nodded to the little light bobbing over his shoulder. "She gave me back a fraction to entice Tamlin to accept her offer, but he still refuses her." He jerked his chin to my healed face. "I knew some good would come of being down here." "So you're trapped under the mountain too?" A grim nod. "She's summoned all the High Lords to her now, and even those who swore obedience are now forbidden to leave until your trials are over." Until I was dead was probably what he truly meant. "That ring," I said, is it actually Jurian's eye?" Lucian cringed. "Indeed. So you really know everything then?" Alice didn't say what happened after Jurian and Amarantha faced each other.
They wrecked an entire battlefield, using their soldiers as shields until their forces were nearly all dead. Jurian had been gifted some protection against her, but once they entered into single combat, it didn't take her long to render him prone. Then she dragged him back to her camp and took weeks to torture and kill him. She refused orders to march to the King of Hybern's aid, cost him armies and the war. She refused to do anything until she'd finished Jurian's demise. All that she kept was his finger bone and his eye. Clythia promised him that he would never die. And so long as Amarantha keeps that eye of his preserved through her magic, keeps his soul and consciousness bound to it, he'll remain trapped, watching through it. A fitting punishment for what he did, but...
Lucian tapped his own missing eye.
I'm glad she didn't do the same to me. She seems to have an obsession with that sort of thing.
I shuddered. A huntress. She was little more than an immortal, cruel huntress, collecting trophies from her kills and conquests to gloat over through the ages. The rage and despair and horror Jurian must endure every day for eternity. Deserved, perhaps, but worse than anything I could imagine. I shook the thought from me. Is Tamlin?
He's...
But Lucian shot to his feet at a sound my human ears couldn't hear.
The guards are about to change rotations and are headed this way. Try not to die, will you? I already have a long list of fairies to kill. I don't need to add more to it, if only for Tamlin's sake.
Which was, no doubt, why he'd even come down here. Lucian vanished. Just vanished into the dim light. A moment later, a yellowish eye tinged with red appeared at the peephole in the door, glared at me, and continued onward. I dozed on and off for what could have been hours or days. They gave me 3 miserable meals of stale bread and water at no regular interval that I could detect. All I knew when the door to my cell swung open was that my relentless hunger no longer mattered, and it would be wise not to struggle when the 2 squat, red-skinned fairies half-dragged me to the throne room. I marked the path, picking out details in the hall, interesting cracks in the walls, features in the tapestries, an odd bend. Anything to remind me of the way out of the dungeons. I observed more of Amarantha's throne room this time too, noting the exits. No windows as we were underground, and the mountain I'd seen depicted on that map at the manor was in the heart of the land, far from the spring court, even farther from the wall. If I were to escape with Tamlin, my best chance would be to run for that cave in the belly of the mountain. A crowd of fairies stood along a far wall. Over their heads, I could make out the arch of a doorway. I tried not to look up at Claire's rotting body as we passed, and instead focused on the assembled court. Everyone was clad in rich, colorful clothing, all of them seeming clean and fed. Dispersed among them were fairies with masks, the spring court. If I had any chance of finding allies, it would be with them. I scanned the crowd for Lucian, but didn't find him before I was thrown at the foot of the dais. Amarantha wore a gown of rubies, drawing attention to her red-gold hair and to her lips, which spread in a serpentine smile as I looked up at her. The Fairy Queen clicked her tongue. "You look positively dreadful." She turned to Tamlin, still at her side. His expression remained distant. "Wouldn't you say she's taken a turn for the worse?" He didn't reply. He didn't even meet my gaze. "You know," Amarantha mused, leaning against an arm of her throne, "I couldn't sleep last night, and I realized why this morning." She ran an eye over me. "I don't know your name. If you and I are going to be such close friends for the next 3 months, I should know your name, shouldn't I?" I prevented myself from nodding. There was something charming and inviting about her. A part of me began to understand why the High Lords had fallen under her thrall, believed in her lies. I hated her for it. When I didn't reply, Amarantha frowned. "Come now, pet. You know my name. Isn't it fair that I know yours?" There was movement to my right, and I tensed as the adder appeared through the parted crowd, grinning at me with row after row of teeth. "After all," Amarantha waved an elegant hand to the space behind me, the crystal casing around Jurian's eye catching the light. "You've already learned the consequences of giving false names." A black cloud wrapped around me as I sensed Claire's nailed form on the wall behind me. Still, I kept my mouth shut. "Rhysand," Amarantha said, not needing to raise her voice to summon him. My heart became a leaden weight as those casual, strolling steps sounded from behind. They stopped when they were beside me, far too close for my liking. From the corner of my eye, I studied the High Lord of the Night Court as he bowed at the waist. Night still seemed to ripple off him, like some near-invisible cloak. Amarantha lifted her brows. "Is this the girl you saw at Tamlin's estate?" He brushed some invisible fleck of dust off his black tunic before he surveyed me. His violet eyes held boredom and disdain. "I suppose." "But did you or did you not tell me that girl," Amarantha said, her tone sharpening as she pointed to Claire, "was the one you saw?" He stuffed his hands into his pockets. "Humans all look alike to me." Amarantha gave him a saccharine smile. "And what about fairies?" Rhysand bowed again, so smooth it looked like a dance. "Among a sea of mundane faces, yours is a work of art." Had I not been straddling the line between life and death, I might have snorted. Humans all look alike. I didn't believe him for a second. Rhysand knew exactly how I looked. He'd recognized me that day at the manor. I willed my features into neutrality as Amarantha's attention again returned to me. "What's her name?" she demanded of Rhysand. "How would I know? She lied to me." Either toying with Amarantha was a joke to him, as much of a joke as impaling a head in Tamlin's garden, or it was just more court scheming. I braced myself for the scrape of those talons against my mind, braced myself for the order I was sure she was to give next. Still, I kept my lips sealed. I prayed Nesta had hired those scouts and guards, prayed she'd persuaded my father to take the precautions. "If you're inclined to play games, girl, then I suppose we can do this the fun way," Amarantha said. She snapped her fingers at the adder, who reached into the crowd and grabbed someone. Red hair glinted, and I jolted a step as the adder yanked Lucian forward by the collar of his green tunic. No. No. Lucian thrashed against the adder, but could do nothing against those needle-like nails as it forced him to his knees. The adder smiled, releasing his tunic, but kept close. Amarantha flicked a finger in Rhysand's direction. The High Lord of the Night Court lifted a groomed brow. "Hold his mind," she commanded. My heart dropped to the floor. Lucian went utterly still, sweat gleaming on his neck as Rhysand bowed his head to the Queen and faced him. Behind them, pressing to the front of the crowd, came 4 tall, red-haired high fae. Toned and muscled, some of them looking like warriors about to set foot on a battlefield, some like pretty courtiers. They all stared at Lucian and grinned.
the 4 remaining sons of the High Lord of the Autumn Court.
Her name, emissary?
Amarantha asked of Lucian. But Lucian only glanced at Tamlin before closing his eyes and squaring his shoulders. Rhysand began smiling faintly, and I shuddered at the memory of what those invisible claws had felt like as they gripped my mind. How easy it would have been for him to crush it. Lucian's brothers lurked on the edges of the crowd. No remorse, no fear on their handsome faces. Amarantha sighed.
I thought you would have learned your lesson, Lucian. Though this time your silence will damn you as much as your tongue.
Lucian kept his eyes shut. Ready. He was ready for Rhysand to wipe out everything he was, to turn his mind, his self, into dust.
Her name?
She asked Tamlin, who didn't reply. His eyes were fixed on Lucian's brothers, as if marking who was smiling the broadest.
Amarantha ran a nail down the arm of her throne. I don't suppose your handsome brothers know Lucian, she purred.
If we did, lady, we would be the first to tell you, said the tallest. He was lean, well-dressed, every inch of him a court-trained bastard. Probably the eldest, given the way even the ones who looked like born warriors stared at him with deference and calculation. And fear. Amarantha gave him a considering smile and lifted her hand. Rhysand cocked his head, his eyes narrowing slightly on Lucian. Lucian stiffened. A groan slipped out of him, and, "Feyre!" I shouted. "My name is Feyre." It was all I could do to keep from sinking to my knees as Amarantha nodded and Rhysand stepped back. He hadn't even removed his hands from his pockets. She must have allowed him more power than the others then, if he could still inflict such harm while leashed to her. Or else his power before she'd stolen it had been extraordinary for this to be considered the basest remnants. Lucian sagged on the ground, trembling. His brothers frowned, the eldest going so far as to bare his teeth at me in a silent snarl. I ignored him.
Feyre,
Amarantha said, testing my name, the taste of the 2 syllables on her tongue.
An old name. From our earlier dialects. Well, Feyre,
she said. I could have wept with relief when she didn't ask for my family name.
I promised you a riddle.
Everything became thick and murky. Why did Tamlin do nothing, say nothing? What had Lucian been about to say before he'd fled my cell?
Solve this, Feyre, and you and your High Lord and all his court may immediately leave with my blessing.
Let's see if you are indeed clever enough to deserve one of our kind. Her dark eyes shone, and I cleared my mind as best I could as she spoke.
There are those who seek me a lifetime, but we never meet, and those I kiss, but who trample me beneath ungrateful feet. At times I seem to favor the clever and the fair, but I bless all those who are brave enough to dare. By large, my ministrations are soft-handed and sweet, but scorned, I become a difficult beast to defeat. For though each of my strikes lands a powerful blow, when I kill, I do it slow. I blinked, and she repeated herself, smiling when she finished, smug as a cat. My mind was void, a blank mass of uselessness. Could it be some sort of disease? My mother had died of typhus, and her cousin had died of malaria after going to Bharat, but none of those symptoms seemed to match the riddle. Maybe it was a person? A ripple of laughter spread across those assembled behind us, the loudest from Lucian's brothers. Rhysand was watching me, wreathed in night and smiling faintly. The answer was so close. One little answer and we could all be free. Immediately, she'd said, as opposed to... Wait, had the conditions of my trials been different from those of the riddle? She'd emphasized immediately only when talking about solving the riddle. No, I couldn't think about that right now. I had to solve this riddle. We could all be free, free. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't even come up with a possibility. I'd be better off slitting my own throat and ending my suffering there before she could rip me to shreds. I was a fool, a common human idiot. I looked to Tamlin. The gold in his eyes flickered, but his face betrayed nothing. "Think on it," Amarantha said consolingly, and flicked a grin down at her ring, at the eye swiveling within. "When it comes to you, I'll be waiting." I gazed at Tamlin even as I was pulled away to the dungeons, my vacant mind reeling. As they locked me in my cell once more, I knew I was going to lose. I spent 2 days in that cell. Or at least I figured it was 2 days, based on the meal pattern I'd begun to work out. I ate the decent parts of the half-moldy food, and though I hoped for it, Lucian never came to see me. I knew better than to wish for Tamlin. I had little to do other than ponder Amarantha's riddle. The more I thought about it, the less sense it made. I dwelled on various kinds of poisons and venomous animals, and that yielded nothing beyond my growing sense of stupidity. Not to mention the nagging feeling that she might have wound up tricking me with this bargain when she'd emphasized immediately regarding the riddle. Maybe she meant she would not free us immediately after I finished her trials, that she could take however long she wanted. No. I was just being paranoid. I was overthinking it. But the riddle could free us all, instantaneously. I had to solve it. While I'd sworn not to think too long on what tasks awaited me, I didn't doubt Amarantha's imagination, and I often awoke sweating and panting from my restless dreams. Dreams in which I was trapped within a crystal ring, forever silent and forced to witness their bloodthirsty, cruel world, cleaved from everything I'd ever loved. Amarantha had claimed there wouldn't be enough left of me to play with if I failed a trial, and I prayed that she hadn't lied. Better to be obliterated than to endure Jurian's fate. Still, fear like nothing I had ever known swallowed me whole when my cell door opened, and the red-skinned guards told me that the full moon had arisen. Chapter 36. The sounds of a teeming crowd reverberated against the passageway. My armed escort didn't bother with drawn weapons as they tugged me forward. I wasn't even shackled. Someone or something would catch me before I moved 3 feet and gut me where I stood. The cacophony of laughter, shouting, and unearthly howls worsened when the hall opened into what had to be a massive arena. There had been no attempt to decorate the torchlit cavern, and I couldn't tell if it had been hewn from the rock or if it was formed by nature. The floor was slick and muddy, and I struggled to keep my footing as we walked. But it was the enormous, riotous crowd that turned my insides cold as they stared at me. I couldn't decipher what they were shouting, but I had a good enough idea. Their cruel, ethereal faces and wide grins told me everything I needed to know. Not just lesser fairies, but high fae too, their excitement making their faces almost as feral as their more unearthly brethren. I was hauled toward a wooden platform erected above the crowd. Atop it sat Amarantha and Tamlin, and before it, I did my best to keep my chin high as I beheld the exposed labyrinth of tunnels and trenches running along the floor. The crowd stood along the banks, blocking my view of what lay within as I was thrown to my knees before Amarantha's platform. The half-frozen mud seeped into my pants. I rose on trembling legs. Around the platform stood a group of 6 males, secluded from the main crowd. From their cold, beautiful faces, from that echo of power still about them, I knew they were the other High Lords of Prythian. I ignored Rhysand as soon as I noticed his feline smile, the corona of darkness around him. Amarantha had only to raise a hand, and the roaring crowd silenced. It became so quiet that I could almost hear my heart beating. "Well, Feyre," the Fairy Queen said. I tried not to look at the hand she rested on Tamlin's knee, that ring as vulgar as the gesture itself. "Your first task is here. Let us see how deep that human affection of yours runs." I ground my teeth and almost exposed them to her. Tamlin's face remained blank. "I took the liberty of learning a few things about you," Amarantha drawled. "It was only fair, you know." Every instinct, every bit of me that was intrinsically human screamed to run, but I kept my feet planted, locking my knees to avoid them giving out. "I think you'll like this task," she said. She waved a hand, and the adder stepped forward to part the crowd, clearing the way to the lip of a trench. "Go ahead. Look." I obeyed. The trenches, probably 20 feet deep, were slick with mud. In fact, they seemed to have been dug from mud. I fought to keep my footing as I peered in farther. The trenches ran in a maze along the entire floor of the chamber, and their path made little sense. It was full of pits and holes, which undoubtedly led to underground tunnels, and hands slammed into my back, and I cried out as I had the sickening feeling of falling before being suddenly jerked up by a bone-hard grip. Up, up into the air. Laughter echoed through the chamber as I dangled from the adder's claws, its powerful wing beats booming across the arena. It swooped down into the trench and dropped me on my feet. Mud squelched, and I swung my arms as I teetered and slipped. More laughter, even as I remained upright. The mud smelled atrocious, but I swallowed my gag. I turned to find Amarantha's platform now floating to the lip of the trench. She looked down at me, smiling that serpent's grin. "Rhysand tells me you're a huntress," she said, and my heartbeat faltered. He must have read my thoughts again, or maybe he'd found my family, and... Amarantha flicked her fingers in my direction. "Hunt this." The fairies cheered, and I saw gold flash between spindly, multi-hued palms. Betting on my life, on how long I would last once this started. I raised my eyes to Tamlin. His emerald gaze was frozen, and I memorized the lines of his face, the shape of his mask, the shade of his hair, one last time. "Release it," Amarantha called. I trembled to the marrow of my bones as a grate groaned, and then a slithering, swift-moving noise filled the chamber. My shoulders rose toward my ears. The crowd quieted to a murmur, silent enough to hear a guttural kind of grumble, so I could feel the vibrations in the ground as whatever it was rushed at me. Amarantha clicked her tongue, and I whipped my head to her. Her brows rose. "Run," she whispered. Then it appeared. I ran. It was a giant worm.
or what might have once been a worm had its front end not become an enormous mouth filled with ring after ring of razor-sharp teeth. It barreled toward me, its pinkish-brown body surging and twisting with horrific ease. These trenches were its lair, and I was dinner. Sliding and slipping on the reeking mud, I hurtled down the length of the trench, wishing I'd memorized more of the layout in the few moments I'd had, knowing full well that my path could lead to a dead end where I would surely... The crowd roared, drowning out the slurping and gnashing noises of the worm, but I didn't dare glance over my shoulder. The ever-nearing stench of it told me enough about how close it was. I didn't have the breath for a sob of relief as I found the fork in the pathway and veered sharply left. I had to get as much distance between us as possible. I had to find a spot where I could make a plan, a spot where I could find an advantage. Another fork. I veered left again. Perhaps if I took as many lefts as I could make a circle and somehow come up behind the creature and... No, that was absurd. I'd have to be thrice as fast as the worm, and right now I could barely keep ahead of it. I slid into a wall as I made another left and slammed into the slick mud. Cold, reeking, smothering. I wiped it from my eyes to find the leering faces of fairies floating above me, laughing. I ran for my life. I reached a straight, flat stretch of trench and threw my strength to my legs as I bolted down its course. I finally dared look over my shoulder, and my fear became wild and thrashing as the worm surged into the path, hot on my trail. I almost missed a slender opening in the side of the trench thanks to that look, and I gave up valuable steps as I skidded to a halt to squeeze myself through the gap. It was too small for the worm, but the creature could probably shatter through the mud. If not, its teeth could do the trick. But it was worth the risk. As I made to pull myself through, a force grabbed me back. No, not a force, but the walls. The crack was too small, and I'd so frantically thrown myself through it that I'd become wedged between it. My back to the worm, and too far between the walls to be able to turn, I couldn't see as it approached. The smell, though. The smell was growing worse. I pushed and pulled, but the mud was too slick and held fast. The trenches reverberated with the thunderous movements of the worm. I could almost feel its reeking breath upon my half-exposed body, could hear those teeth slashing through the air, closer and closer. Not like this. It couldn't end like this. I clawed at the mud, twisting, tearing at anything to pull me through. The worm neared with each of my heartbeats, the smell nearly overpowering my senses. I ripped away mud, wriggling, kicking, and pushing, sobbing through my gritted teeth. Not like this. The ground shook. A stench wrapped right around me, and hot air slammed into my body. Its teeth clicked together. Grabbing onto the wall, I pulled and pulled. There was a squelch and a sudden release of pressure around my middle, and I fell through the crack, sprawling in the mud. The crowd sighed. I didn't have time for tears of relief as I found myself in another passageway, and I launched farther into the labyrinth. From the continuing quieted roars, I knew the worm had overshot me. But that made no sense. The passage offered no place to hide. It would have seen me stuck there. Unless it couldn't break through and was now taking some alternate route and would spring upon me. I didn't check my speed, though I knew I wasted momentum by smashing into wall after wall as I made each sharp turn. The worm also had to lose its speed making these bends. A creature that big couldn't take the turns without slowing, no matter how dexterous it might be. I risked a look at the crowd. Their faces were tight with disappointment and turned away entirely from me, toward the other end of the chamber. That was where the worm had to be. That was where that passage had ended.
It hadn't seen where I went. It hadn't seen me. It was blind. I was so surprised that I didn't notice the enormous pit that opened before me, hidden by a slight rise, and it was all I could do to not scream as I tumbled in. Air, empty air, and... I slammed into ankle-deep mud, and the crowd cried out. The mud softened the landing, but my teeth still sang with the impact. But nothing was broken. Nothing hurt. A few fairies peered in, leering from high above the gaping mouth of the pit. I whirled around, scanning my surroundings, trying to find the fastest way out. The pit itself opened into a small, dark tunnel, but there was no way to climb up. The wall was too steep. I was trapped. Gasping for breath, I fumbled a few steps into the blackness of the tunnel. I bit down on my shriek as something beneath my foot crunched hard. I staggered back, and my tailbone wailed in pain. I kept scrambling away, but my hand connected with something smooth and hard, and I lifted it to see a gleam of white. Through my muddy fingers, I knew that texture all too well. Bone. Twisting onto my hands and knees, I patted the ground, moving farther into the darkness. Bones, bones, bones of every shape and size, and I swallowed my scream as I realized what this place was. It was only when my hand landed on the smooth dome of a skull that I jumped to my feet. I had to get out, now. "Sarah!" I heard Amarantha's distant call. "You're ruining everyone's fun." She said it as if I were a lousy shuttlecock partner. "Come out!" I certainly would not, but she told me what I needed to know. The worm didn't know where I was. It couldn't smell me. I had precious seconds to get out. As my sight adjusted to the darkness of the worm's den, mounds and mounds of bones gleamed, piles rolling away into the gloom. The chalkiness of the mud had to be from endless layers of them decomposing. I had to get out now, had to find a place to hide that wasn't a death trap. I stumbled out of the den, bones clattering away. Once more in the open air of the pit, I groped one of its steep walls. Several green-faced fairies barked curses at me, but I ignored them as I tried to scale the wall, made it an inch, and slid to the floor. I couldn't get out without a rope or a ladder, and plunging farther into the worm's lair to see if there was another way out wasn't an option. Of course, there was a back door. Every animal's den had 2 exits, but I wasn't about to risk the darkness, effectively blinding myself, and completely eliminate my small edge. I needed a way up. I tried scaling the wall again. The fairies were still murmuring their discontent. As long as they remained that way, I was fine. I again latched onto the muddy wall, digging into the pliable dirt. All I got was freezing mud digging beneath my nails as I slid to the ground yet again. The stench of the place invaded every part of me. I bit down on my nausea as I tried again and again. The fairies were laughing now. "A mouse in a trap," one of them said. "Need a stepping stool?" another crowed. A stepping stool. I whirled toward the piles of bones, then pushed my hand hard against the wall. It felt firm. The entire place was made of packed mud, and if this creature was anything like its smaller, harmless brethren, I could assume that the stench, and therefore the mud itself, was the remnant of whatever had passed through its system after it sucked the bones clean. Disregarding that wretched fact, I seized the spark of hope and grabbed the 2 biggest, strongest bones I could quickly find. Both were longer than my leg and heavy, so heavy as I jammed them into the wall. I didn't know what the creature usually ate,
but it must have been at least cattle-sized.
"What's it doing? What's it planning?"
one of the fairies hissed. I grabbed a third bone and impaled it deep into the wall as high as I could reach. I grabbed a fourth, slightly smaller bone and set it into my belt, strapping it across my back. Testing the 3 bones with a few sharp tugs, I sucked in my breath, ignored the twittering fairies, and began climbing my ladder, my stepping stool. The first bone held firm, and I grunted as I grabbed the second bone step and pulled myself up. I was putting my foot on the step when another idea flashed, and I paused. The fairies, not too far off, began to shout again. But it could work. It could work if I played it right. It could work because it had to work. I dropped back to the mud, and the fairies watching me murmured their confusion. I drew the bone from my belt, and with a sharp intake of breath, I snapped it across my knee. My own bones burned with pain, but the shaft broke, leaving me with 2 sharp-ended spikes. It was going to work. If Amarantha wanted me to hunt, I would hunt. I walked to the middle of the pit opening, calculated the distance, and plunged the 2 bones into the ground. I returned back to the mound of bones and made quick work of whatever I could find that was sturdy and sharp. When my knee became too tender to use as a breaking point, I snapped the bones with my foot. One by one, I stuck them into the muddy floor beneath the pit opening until the whole area, save for one small spot, was filled with white lances. I didn't double-check my work. It would succeed, or I would wind up among those bones on the floor. Just one chance. That was all I had. Better than no chances at all. I dashed to my bone ladder and ignored the sting of the splinters in my fingers as I climbed to the 3rd rung, where I balanced before embedding a 4th bone into the wall. And just like that, I heaved myself out of the pit mouth and almost wept to be exposed to the open air once more. I secured the 3 bones I'd taken in my belt, their weight a comforting presence, and rushed to the nearest wall. I grabbed a fistful of the reeking mud and smeared it across my face. The fairies hissed as I grabbed more, this time coating my hair, then my neck. Already accustomed to the staggering reek, my eyes watered only a little as I made swift work of painting myself. I even paused to roll on the ground. Every inch of me had to be covered, every damn inch. If the creature was blind, then it relied on smell, and my smell would be my greatest weakness. I rubbed mud on me until I was certain I was nothing more than a pair of blue-gray eyes. I doused myself a final time, my hands so slick that I could barely maintain a grasp on one of the sharp-ended bones as I drew it from my belt. "What's it doing?" the green-faced fairy whined again. A deep, elegant voice replied this time. "She's building a trap," Rhysand. "But the Midden Guard relies on its scent to see," Rhysand answered, and I gave a special glower for him as I glanced at the rim of the trench and found him smiling at me. "And Feyre just became invisible." His violet eyes twinkled. I made an obscene gesture before I broke into a run, heading straight for the worm. I placed the remaining bones at especially tight corners, knowing well enough that I couldn't turn at the speed I hoped I would be running. It didn't take much to find the worm, as a crowd of fairies had gathered to taunt it, but I had to get to the right spot. I had to pick my battleground. I slowed to a stalking pace and flattened my back against a wall as I heard the slithering and grunting of the worm, the crunching. The fairies watching the worm,
10 of them, with frosty blue skin and almond-shaped black eyes, giggled. I could only assume they'd grown bored of me and decided to watch something else die. Which was wonderful, but only if the worm was still hungry, only if it would respond to the lure I offered. The crowd murmured and grumbled. I eased around a bend, craning my neck. Too covered in its scent to smell me, the worm continued feasting, stretching its bulbous form upward as one of the fairies dangled what looked like a hairy arm. The worm gnashed its teeth, and the blue fairies cackled as they dropped the arm into its waiting mouth. I recoiled around the bend and raised the bone sword I'd made. I reminded myself of the path I'd taken, of the turns I'd counted. Still, my heart lodged in my throat as I drew the jagged edge of the bone across my palm, splitting open my flesh. Blood welled, bright and shining as rubies. I let it build before clenching my hand into a fist. The worm would smell that soon enough. It was only then that I realized the crowd had gone silent. Almost dropping the bone, I leaned around the bend again to see the worm. It was gone. The blue fairies grinned at me. Then, shattering the silence like a shooting star, a voice, Lucian's, bellowed across the chamber. "To your left!" I bolted, getting a few feet before the wall behind me exploded, mud spraying as the worm burst through, a mass of shredding teeth just inches away. I was already running, so fast that the trenches were a blur of reddish-brown. I needed a bit of distance or else it'd fall right on top of me. But I also needed it close so it couldn't check itself, so it was in a frenzy of hunger. I took the first sharp turn and grabbed onto the bone rail I'd embedded in the corner wall. I used it to swing around, not breaking my speed, propelling me faster, giving me a few more seconds on the worm. Then a left. My breath was a flame ravaging my throat. The second hairpin turn came upon me, and I again used a bit of bone to hurtle around the bend. My knees and ankles groaned as I fought to keep from slipping in the mud. Only one more turn, then a straight run. I flipped around the final turn, and the roar of the fairies became different than it had been earlier. The worm was a raging, crashing force behind me, but my steps were steady as I flew down the last passage. The mouth of the pit loomed, and with a final prayer, I leaped. There was only open black air, reaching up to swallow me. I swung my arms as I careened down, aiming for the spot I'd planned. Pain barked through my bones, my head, as I collided with the muddy ground and rolled. I flipped myself over and screamed as something hit my arm, biting through flesh. But I didn't have time to think, to even look at it, as I scrambled out of the way, as far into the darkness of the worm's den as I could get. I grabbed another bone and whirled when the worm plummeted into the pit. It hit the earth and lashed its massive body to the side, anticipating the strike to kill me, but a wet, crunching noise filled the air instead. And the worm didn't move. I squatted there, gulping down burning air, staring into the abyss of its flesh-shredding mouth, still open wide to devour me. It took me a few heartbeats to realize the worm wasn't going to swallow me whole, and a few more heartbeats to understand that it was truly impaled on the bone spikes. Dead. I didn't entirely hear the gasps, then the cheering. Didn't quite think or feel very much of anything as I edged around the worm and slowly climbed out of the pit, still holding the bone sword in my hand. Silently, still beyond words, I stumbled back through the labyrinth, my left arm throbbing, but my body tingled so much I didn't notice. But the moment I beheld Amarantha on her platform at the edge of the trench, I clenched my free hand. Prove my love. Pain shot through my arm, but I embraced it. I had won. I looked up at her from beneath lowered brows and didn't check myself as I exposed my teeth. Her lips were thin, and she no longer grasped Tamlin's knee. Tamlin. My Tamlin. I tightened my grip on the long bone in my hand. I was shaking all over, but not with fear. Oh no, it wasn't fear at all. I'd proved my love, and then some. Well, Amarantha said with a little smirk, I suppose anyone could have done that. I took a few running steps and hurled the bone at her with all my remaining strength. It embedded itself in the mud at her feet, splattering filth onto her white gown, and remained there, quivering. The fairies gasped again, and Amarantha stared at the wobbling bone before touching the mud on her bodice. She smiled slowly. Naughty, she tisked. Had there not been an insurmountable trench between us, I would have ripped her throat out. Someday, if I lived through this, I would skin her alive. I suppose you'll be happy to learn most of my court lost a good deal of money tonight, she said, picking up a piece of parchment. I looked at Tamlin as she scanned the paper. His green eyes were bright, and though his face was deathly pale, I could have sworn there was a ghost of triumph on his face. Let's see, Amarantha went on, reading the paper as she toyed with Jurian's finger bone at the end of her necklace. Yes, I'd say almost my entire court bet on you dying within the first minute. Some said you'd last 5, and... She turned over the paper. And just one person said you would win. Insulting, but not surprising. I didn't fight as the adder hauled me out of the trenches, dumping me at the foot of the platform before flying off. My arm burned at the impact. Amarantha frowned at her list, and she waved a hand. Take her away. I tire of her mundane face. She clenched the arms of her throne hard enough that the whites of her knuckles showed. Rhysand, come here. I didn't stay long enough to see the High Lord prowl forward. Red hands grabbed me, holding tightly to keep from sliding off. I'd forgotten the mud caked on me like a second skin. As they yanked me away, a shooting pain shot along my arm, and agony blanketed my senses. I looked at my left forearm then, and my stomach rose at the trickling blood and ripped tendons, at the lips of my skin pulled back to accommodate the shaft of a bone shard protruding clean through it. I couldn't even glance back at Tamlin, couldn't find Lucian to say thank you before pain consumed me whole, and I could barely manage to walk back to my cell.
All right. And that was chapters 35 and 36. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. It was a bit of a long one today, so hopefully you guys got through it all. Hope you guys have been enjoying the book so far. We're almost done. We're like 80% through this book, and then we'll probably swap over to another one. If not, maybe I don't know. I did a poll last time if you guys wanted me to continue A Court of Thorns and Roses or Haunting Adeline, or you wanted me to do a different book. So I'll probably do that again. I'll run another poll and see if you guys want to continue the Court of Thorns and Rose series, or do you want to go back to Haunting Adeline, or do you want to do something completely different? I'll probably do a a poll for that. But yeah, that's gonna be today's episode. Thank you guys so much. Love you all. Again, get on the Patreon, download the episode, rate 5 stars, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, as well as YouTube. Love you all, and peace.